Welcome to Resilience Talk, hosted by Paul Spencer of Second Nature Solutions. Let's dive in.
Sometimes there are things that we're told, or maybe even mentioned from friends, advisors, about maybe advice around how to do something a little differently that runs counter to what we would normally think about taking the approach, or runs counter to our values about how we were taught to run the business or how things are meant to go. So that's what I want to talk about today. Last time we were talking about Deming and the 7 deadly sins. And there's an interesting comment that he makes in his 14 points. And again, that's in the Out of Crisis book that he wrote in 83. And so one of his points in his 14 points is to end the practice of awarding business on the basis of a price tag. And what he means by that is we do spend a lot of time in business and as owners to get the best deal. And we even have created whole departments that come out of the accounting side called Procurement. And their entire aim is to get the best deal. And if you've ever, normally, the family businesses do not have procurement offices. So you're normally on the other end of a procurement interaction. Doesn't say that you're not looking for your best deal. But when procurement gives you a call from a current customer of yours and says, hey, we need to cut your overall cost by 10%, they're looking to get their best deal. And so what is their input in their system? Well, they have an aim to reduce costs, and they're probably most likely incentivized. And so if they can save $1,000, if they can save $1 million, whatever that range is, then they may get a commission on that, right? And so that is very normal, unfortunately. And this is what Deming is talking about. So in the practice of awarding business on the basis of price tag. And why does he say that? So let's think about that. Why? Why does that even matter? Well, Paul, why would I not want to cut my expenses, increase my margin, right? By getting a low, instead of spending $2,000, I can spend $1,200 and book the $800. Right? Why wouldn't I do that? Well, maybe that's maybe in the short term, right? Just like what we talked about last time with the deadly sins, is emphasis on short-term profits. Same thing here. Sure, they may help for you in this month, maybe even this quarter, maybe even this year. That does have an effect on your overall profit margin. But one thing that we did talk about in the deadly sins is management by use only of visible figures. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but the whole concept there is that there's a lot of emphasis on that our customer's $2,000 price tag. And can we get it to $1,200? Can we save $800, which is a big percentage? But we don't spend a lot of time on what Deming calls the figures that are unknown or maybe even unknowable. And you say, well, Paul, how can I run a business on things that I don't know or that are not even knowable? And that's his point. His point is, what are the unintended consequences of reducing that cost, the $800, from a primary supplier of yours? What are they going to do, right? So now you've said, geez, we've won, and Paul, the procurement officer, gets a nice incentivized check for saving, say, $800,000 this year from a key supplier. And what's the key supplier's perspective of this? Well, geez, we just lost a huge percentage of our income and our revenue. which is going to affect our labor and our costs. So what are they going to do? They're going to cut costs, right? And so what happens in the long term? Their quality goes down. And then what happens in the long term for you? Your quality suffers because now the supplier is giving you products or services that aren't as good as they used to be. And you may say, well, we didn't need that high quality of product. We just need a bare minimum product. And that may be the case, but if you're doing that across all of your customers and across all of your suppliers, which again is to award business based on price tag, the unknowable or the unknown figure in this case is quality of your own services and your own products will go down. And we saw a little blip of this with Boeing a few years ago when they were having all these quality issues, right? You go back in and you dig into a lot of the stories from there, and they had made some changes based on price. They had made changes based on labor, based on price. So it's very interesting. It's very counter, right? It's a counter thought. And so Deming would say, why don't we move towards a single supplier? Now, this is a very thought-provocative term, right? He says, instead of award business based on basis of price tag alone, he says, move towards a single supplier for any one item and build a long-term loyalty and trust with them. Build a long-term relationship. And so what does that counter? The counter of that is risk management and redundancy, right? And having flexibility with multiple suppliers, having redundancy. What if that supplier goes out of business? What if that supplier is unable to provide? Then I'm SOL, right? And those thoughts and those conversations are worth having. But Deming is counter that and saying that if you build a deep relationship with a single supplier on a single item, then your quality will go up. You may pay more for that item, but the interaction that you're having with that customer, the relationship that you're having with that customer becomes, and you think about it as part of our system, is now we get closer and closer and closer. And now our supplier is actually giving us what we really need, what fits within our own business, our own infrastructure, our own services. And it's increasing the unknown and unknowable, right? Those unknown, unknowable figures, which is quality. And with those quality things go up, things tend to snowball, right? Here's another example is that we often talk about within the Deming world about suboptimization. And the counter thought to that, the typical thought is we need efficiency. And this is all in the same, it's all in the same realm. Because when we talk about price tag, then typically that's a mandate that's coming down that says that we need to be more efficient. And what does that mean? That means let's not spend as much time. Let's reduce our labor costs, right? Let's reduce our expenses. Let's do it in the most thinnest way possible through the P&L so that we can increase our margin. And so that's the way we tend to think of our business, and that's the way we're taught. So the counter thought from Deming is to suboptimize. And what does that mean? That means that instead of thinking about each part of your business, and we, from a corporate standpoint, you think about them as departments, but we have those departments, even though they may just be one person in our family businesses. So you have the accounting side, right? They're doing their taxes, the end of year taxes, payroll, all of those things kind of fit together. You have the delivery side. You might have a technology side or an IT side. You have the sales. You have the marketing, right? All of that is your system. And if we were to crank up, meaning let's be super efficient with every single one of those departments, which again is how we're taught and what we're told to do, is that We want the technology, innovation, IT side to be the most efficient. And we want delivery to be most efficient. And we want sales to be most efficient. And what happens is that they tend to make decisions on their own, in their own unit, to be sufficient, right? And we can go right back to procurement with this, right? So in procurement, they're looking to be efficient. And what's their efficiency? Is to save the company money. That's their aim, save money for the company. And so what do? They go, and here's a nice story, that they go and they cut back on travel expenses. They get the red-eye flights. This is for their internal team. So sales is traveling across the country. They've got a big $20 million deal that they're working on. And what does the travel agency work on? Their efficiency is to save money. And so they link the sales team through multiple stops at weird hours. They arrive late in the evening. They're not in a very great hotel because they're saving money. They don't get a good night's sleep. They don't get a nice breakfast. They're not really close to the customer or wherever the meeting might be. And so it's a nice 35, 45-minute drive without traffic, but there's lots of traffic where they are, so it takes them an hour and a half, right? And then they get into the meeting. You can just see how that's not efficient for their customer, their internal customer, which is the salespeople. But they're winning, they're optimized, they're efficient. And so in this case, we would say, let's sub-optimize the travel team, the travel agency, right? Whoever the person is who's responsible for travel, sub-optimize that. Spend the extra $350 and put them in a nice hotel close to where the customer is so that they can walk across the street, right? Spend another $1,800 to get them the direct flight at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So when they get there, it's before dinner. They can have a nice meal, settle in, prep, be well rested for their meeting in the morning, and just walk across the street. That is sub-optimizing. That is super important. We do this all the time in our businesses. And that's a great physical example, but we're doing this everywhere within all of the aspects of our business. We're optimizing, being efficient. And going back to what Deming talks about with the seven deadly sins, these are the unknown and unknowable figures, which is what I just talked about. The rest or lack of rest for your sales team to go close a high-profile client, right? That is not tracked anywhere on a spreadsheet. And it's not anywhere in our EOS meetings on our rocks to be able to improve that number. It's not recorded anywhere. It's unknown or unknowable, right? Unknowable meaning that it's so far through so many variables, so much complexity that you can't measure it. And why would you? It would take you forever just to measure it. So anyway, this is important to understand that sub-optimizing is actually better for your business than going through, we talked about this too, but right, around accountability. Efficiency is another word that we throw around pretty easily. Like, let's be more efficient. Let's be counter thinkers. And let's say, let's sub-optimize that. Interesting. What if we sub-optimize that? That is counter thinking, and that'll get people thinking about all the things that we just talked about. What are the things that we're doing where we're so focused on being efficient and so focused on the price tag that it's creating unknown and unknowable figures around our business? This is counter thinking. And one other one, just one last one, is to embrace the competition, right? Deming talks about this all the time, that your competition is within the system of your business, right? So if you think about the system, You have your business, and then you have your customers, your suppliers, right? You have your vendors. Then you have the government, meaning might have state, city, and local regulations. Even if you're not in a regulated industry, you have your taxes, right? All fit within that system. And then you have your competitors, and they're all within the same system. So being aware of all of that and embracing the competition and understanding where they are, maybe even working with them, all creates a better ecosystem. Again, very counterintuitive, and it's worth spending some time thinking about these things. And I would encourage you to, I think out of all of these, probably they're all doable. I would say the easiest one to experiment with is the sub-optimization aspect. And so anytime somebody says something about efficiency, or you and your brain is thinking efficiency, or it comes out of your mouth, is to stop yourself and say out loud, instead of us being efficient, I know I just mentioned efficiency, let's think about how we can best sub-optimize our organization. And then let's see what kind of outcomes we get from that. You'll enjoy it. It's fun. And I guarantee you'll get better outcomes than optimizing everything in your business and being, quote unquote, more efficient.